What happens to your hobbies, your interests, and the things that you cared about so much when everything in your life seems like it's falling apart? Welcome back to Overexposed, guys. A little bit of a different video for you here today. I'm going to tell you the story about the time that I quit photography. If you've got any history of relationship trauma or PTSD or anything like that, it's probably one to skip. Some of this stuff might, I don't know, bring back some bad memories or whatnot. So just a slight warning before we get going too far. So if you look at the date that my channel was created, it was actually created back in 2017. And my life looked a lot different back then than what it does now. Perhaps you can find some old videos and old clips on the channel from many years ago where I was still married to my ex-wife. To make a really long, really painful story really short, my relationship with my ex came to an end. So I found myself a 30-year-old man living back at home with my parents with 2 kids. Didn't have a house, wife kept the house, didn't have a place to go. So it's really rebuilding, starting over. And for a little bit of background, I've always been a guy who's been really into my hobbies, right? Dirt bikes, bicycles, all these different things, right? As a kid, lots of interest, always had hobbies. I was into cars for a time, modifying my Subaru Impreza. So I've always been about my hobbies, and photography is no different. Backstory how I got into photography: I had a wonderful baby boy back in 2012. And when he was born, I needed something to document that with, so I bought a Nikon D3200. I didn't really research that decision very well. I actually went to the Best Buy in Northern Kentucky to buy a Sony Alpha SLR, right before they had moved on to mirrorless. This was right at the outset of Sony's new mirrorless movement. I ended up with the Nikon and started taking pictures, mostly just of the kids, but had a really good time taking pictures. And eventually I wanted to start taking pictures of other things. Like, I really found that I enjoyed photography as a hobby. So started researching lenses. The lens that really kind of set me on the path, really got me into the hobby, was this Nikon 35 1.8 DX, right? My very first prime lens. I loved the images that I got out of that lens, and that what kind of cemented my love of photography. I'd bought this new lens, it had improved my photography, at least I felt like it had, and went from there. I eventually upgraded to a Nikon 5000 series, and then after I got out of law school, all the way up to a Nikon D800. After I got out of law school, I got a job that required quite a bit of traveling. I went from city to city, doing people's Social Security disability hearings. Really good job. Enjoyed it while I was there. So the traveling coupled with my love of photography, I would routinely go to these cities, go out at night and take really cool pictures. Loved it. One could probably deduce though, being out of town 2, 3, 4 nights a week, not super good for my family. So fast forward until 2019, there's a trip you're not gonna hear very much about on this channel ever. But my ex and I took our kids on an Alaskan cruise. That was the last thing that we ended up doing as a family. Came back from that, and that's when everything changed. My ex and I separated. I moved back in with my parents. And to make matters worse, once I moved in with my parents, I ended up losing my job as well. The job that I loved, all the traveling and whatever that went along with that. And there were a couple of reasons for that. Number one, we were on the front end of COVID. And number two, my boss said he could no longer afford to pay my salary. So really, really a bummer. So I'm without a job, going through a divorce, and now living with my parents. So not a great time in my life, I think probably goes without saying. So getting to the main kind of thrust of this video, life is really hard, and it can be desperately hard for folks at times. And I don't mean to make this video and make it survivor's bias and whatnot, think, look, I made it through everything and so you can too. I had a lot of good fortune. I had a set of parents who were willing to take me in. I had a law degree and a set of marketable skills where I could find a job relatively easy, considering how bad the job market was at the time with COVID and whatnot. I recognize that I had some privilege there. But all that's to say, things can get really, really tough. One of the things that I did when I moved back in with my parents was sold my complete set of Nikon gear. I had just bought a Nikon Z7, their new foray into mirrorless cameras. I basically took it on the Alaska trip, used it on that trip, and sold it because the divorce happened so quickly after that. Sold all my gear. I owned, at one point going through there, I owned no cameras. My interest in photography was absolutely nil. When my life was falling apart, I had very little interest in going out into the world and capturing anything. Really, really tough time. So, oh look, we're in a tunnel. So I would put this video out and just maybe offer a word of encouragement if you are going through something like that and your passion for your hobbies and your interests, it seems to be waning. You guys can't even see me now. Oh, there we go. Check that out. Out of the tunnel now. I'm gonna set my camera down and talk for a minute. Some of you guys may be going through some stuff. You may be, maybe you had a recent separation or divorce, or maybe your kid is sick, and maybe a family member's sick, something like that. Any number of troubles that we can have in life. And your interest in photography or your interest in video games or cars or whatever isn't what it used to be. I would just offer a word of encouragement and say, it's okay. All of that will come back. All of that will come back in time. But the main point is you have to take care of you, and you have to get through it. There are gonna be times in your life when the most that you can do is just get out of bed. And I certainly know I was there. I remember some mornings, some very, very dark mornings with my parents when my kids were at my ex's, I was unemployed, didn't have a job, and nowhere to go. And I just remember sleeping 8, 9, 10, 11 o'clock in the morning, and just watching the hours tick by, not getting anything done. So sometimes the best you can do is just gonna be getting out of the bed. You have to try to get better. You have to try to get things back on track. Taking stock of each small victory along the way, because with each little victory, each tiny victory that you get, you're putting more time and space between you and whatever is holding you up. It might be a few days, it might be a few weeks, it might even be years before you're able to once again look at a hobby or look at something that you're once passionate about and be able to find inspiration again. But eventually, you'll get back there. I promise you'll get back there. You just gotta stay focused, keep working. Feels really strange ending this video like I've ended all of my videos, which is telling you to go watch something else. I would just end this video by saying I love you guys. I really appreciate you watching. And if you need help, don't hesitate to reach out to somebody and ask. Send me a message, and I'll be happy to talk to you as much as I can. As always, guys, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.